All right, folks, how you doing? It's a good turnout for this. So this is So I Raised a Teenage Brony. The panel was originally designed to be kind of a guide for parents that are having trouble maybe understanding what the appeal is for their teenagers or their young adult kids that suddenly find themselves interested in pastel-colored ponies. That it is an okay thing, and that it's not something that they need to be worried about. They shouldn't start questioning their sexuality or anything like that. So I originally had two sets of panelists that were going to come in here and talk about their the parents' perspective and of course the kids' perspective on having some isn't the family. So I'm going to pass this over to them to let them start, and we're going to also take some questions a little bit later on. So I'm also going to ask the questions to them because that'll make it go a little bit better. Okay, so if you two could introduce yourselves.
I'm Dylan McClellan. I've been a Brony for about a little over a year and a half.
And I'm his mom, Lisa.
I like how he said it almost reminded me of that thing like I'm Obsidian Winter and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Obsidian. Yeah, I know some Bronies sometimes feel like that. Nick, what did you say? Yes. Okay. So, what was your opinion when you first found out that Dylan was into My Little Pony?
Well, I thought he was just watching it for his little sister. Way of babysitting, passing the time. We got into it, and it's been interesting.
And what made you actually start watching the show? What's your story on that?
When I started watching the show, it was really just sitting down on the couch with my sister. Just, what do you want to watch? She picked it and watched a few episodes, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. The animation is great, the music, but anyway.
The theme of good versus evil.
Yeah, and it brought me back to childhood memories like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Yes. And then it wasn't until several weeks or even a month later that I figured out there was this huge fandom surrounding it. My first introduction to it was just a friend at school bringing to school a disc for everyone to take home and burn. And then I found, I'm not just blindly promoting, but MLP forums. It's just the world's largest Brony forum, and just got connected with all the music, the fan art. Everything's just great about it.
That's actually where I originally met Dylan. Actually, was when I first got to the fandom. I instantly took to the internet, and it was kind of the same thing. When it was my daughter, I was bored at night, and I was like, oh, okay. So I saw some people trolling in trade chat on Warcraft about this My Little Pony stuff. So that's a true story too. I remember everybody was like, oh God, somebody would mention somebody's best pony, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I saw it and I watched it with my daughter, and I went to the internet and found MLP forums, and that was my connection to Dylan and how they actually ended up here. So just a good example of how we kind of network.
We actually met in role play together.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a G role play. Okay, you guys saw people grinning and giggling and stuff. So. But yeah, I mean, he was just a great guy, and he expressed interest, and I thought that this would be a great idea. So, back to Liz, what did you when you finally kind of understood that he was watching it for himself instead? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I remember thinking it's a little weird. It doesn't really seem to fit the profile of a teenage boy, but I'm open to everything. And every generation has their thing that they follow, something they identify with, and it sparked creativity. And his writing was very poor. Sorry. Earlier.
Moms are great.
It's become so much better. He's learning how to communicate and express himself. And it's interesting to see what he writes.
Both ways.
A long time ago, I did Dungeons and Dragons. And there's lots of work.
So did you have like anything that you yourself would like to say to, parents that are trying to kind of understand why they're, particularly to, the younger guys and stuff, because they're the ones that have, of course, the harder time. People see, a girl watching My Little Pony and, it's, people are more accepting, obviously, than when, somebody's 14, 15, 16, is watching it with male. Did you have anything to say to, those parents?
Watch the show. Get into it. Find out what your kids are interested in. And, you may end up liking it. It's a good show.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so guys, really quick, I'd like to open up the floor to questions for these guys, including myself. So if anyone wants to raise their hand. All right, way back in the back.
Okay. My question is, I have a very broad mind, so I understand where my stepson is coming from. My boyfriend, on the other hand, has a mind that is like this. His mind is when he sees a rainbow, and please, I will apologize now if I offend anybody with this statement. This is not my opinion at all. To him, the rainbow symbolizes homosexuality.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
It is, and it bugs me. I have listened to my stepson, and I understand. I try to get him to watch. How do you get past this misconception to anybody else, besides telling him to sit down and watch the show? This is a man who sits down, and all he does is he works with cars. And he says that, his son should be out doing this instead of sitting down watching My Little Pony. And he thinks this is a big waste of time. I'm here learning, and I've learned that just being here, this is very educational. There are things that are very good for children and adults. I've learned so much from being here today. How do I take this and explain that to someone else? How did your dad react?
Yeah, it was a really good statement.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I like it, what's your thing? And then he bought me his jacket.
Sorry? Can I? Go for it.
I have 3 teenagers. My 16-year-old son is a Brony and has been for 3 years. My husband was married for 7 years. So his first reaction was, again? Say that what? But we did. We sat down and we went through it and watched the show together. We talked to our son. My son was saying things like, oh, well, this is great advice. When I have kids, I'm going to say this to my kids. Cues like that were telling us how healthy it was and what great impact it was having. And I think in our society, anything that gets boys to know that it's okay to talk, it's okay to communicate. We don't have to use aggression to get our own way. We can actually have healthy relationships and be great at whatever we choose to do, no matter what field it's in, even if it's outside your comfort zone. I think any of those things, are very helpful. The other thing you might want to do is that there was a psychological study that's been ongoing regarding bronies, and you might want to print that offline and show it to him. That, it might not be the mainstream, but of course anything that breaks that stereotype of what a man should be, I'm sorry, but if you look at this organization, if I went to, and I've been to sports conventions and all of that, would I let my daughters go to a rave? No, but I've let them go here 3 times I've attended.
Yeah, I mean, I would have dropped back to this by itself, so I applaud you.
The work you want to look at, the research is Dr. Edwards, and he has an entire, these are, licensed psychologists that have done these studies on Brony. Matter of fact, they're actually here. They had a panel yesterday. And, oh yeah, they did have one today. I've been up in the main hall most today, so forgive me. I'm not head of programming. I don't know what's going on. But I would also say to this as well, to you, is I would also mention the lessons that the show teaches. And ask, are these not qualities that we want to have instilled in our children, regardless of what gender they are? I mean, look at what the elements of harmony represent, right? I mean, these are like the best qualities that we look for in people, not just in friendships, but in people in general. And of course, everybody knows that friendships make the best relationships. So when they get older, that also translates to help building, healthier relationships, whether they just be friendship or romantic. So the show, you take just the simple concepts of the show and they're the building blocks to something so much greater. And I think that if you turn around and you just take the lessons of the show and just remove the rainbows and the cartoon and everything and just go with the message, that might be a good approach too. All right, no problem. Let's, this gentleman right here.
Well, there's a documentary out called Misrepresentation. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it was a document done by a very prominent feminist, and now she's working on another documentary exploring how hypermasculinity affects men. How the idea of when you tell a guy to man up, when you tell a guy, to grow a pair, do all these things, be masculine, be tough, be aggressive, how that really affects men. And they say the biggest emotion that comes out of that for men is anxiety. And I know that I deal with that on a very personal level. My best friend of 14 years, he knows I'm a brony. He knows I collect, pony toys and watch My Little Pony and obsess over this constantly on a regular basis. But we have other things in common too. I mean, I'm a game designer and he has played games all his life. But you cannot get past this, new thing for me. You cannot get past this. You can't get past the fact that I paint my fingernails, for Christ's sake. And it's like, we've been best friends for 14 years and now it's to the point where it's like, is this the thing that's going to destroy our friendship? Is this, all the times I've helped you, all the times you've helped me, all the things we've been through, we love each other like we're brothers, and you're going to let this really come between us because I'm not fitting what you think, is the definition of a man. And, my father, on the other hand, is another issue. He's a very strict pastor of his own church. Every time I go to his house, I actually take this off of my nails because I know he would have something to say about it. He has no idea what My Little Pony is, and he wouldn't care if I told him, so why bother? My question for the panelists, though, is, with your own experience, is there any advice you can get for getting past someone's gender stereotype with essentially My Little Pony?
Love and tolerance is part of the show, and acceptance, even when they're not agreeing with what you believe. It's okay to accept them and accept that they won't tolerate that part of you.
Unfortunately sometimes, and this is a very sad fact, and I think everybody, has encountered this, that is we meet people and sometimes we do drift apart, Sometimes, they just, people cannot overcome, they have a line, and sometimes, and it's sad that pastel-colored ponies would be that line. It's really sad that, a show that most of the people that have the problem don't even watch, I would not, I joined the fandom in here I am, right? And I wouldn't be here if I wouldn't have just given the show a try. You know, and again, when I would see all the people getting trolled in trade chat on Warcraft, I never piped up and said anything because I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it. So I educated myself. And there's going to be people, unfortunately, that they will not take the time to educate themselves. They will not take the time to even if it even goes beyond the show, even if they didn't want to watch the show, just accept you for you and just be like, hey, you like this or you're this way, hey, that's fine. It may not be my thing, but that's your thing. And I love you regardless. And I think that unfortunately not everybody's going to see that. And that's just the sad truth.
And not everybody will have an interest in seeing that. Everybody has their own interests, and people do drift apart, and that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we just go our own ways. And sometimes there just is no fixing it. And I know that's probably not the most positive answer, but it's probably the most truthful. So, next question. The lady, I can't see. Somebody's in the back with a red shirt.
When I think the misconception with the rainbow is with my generation, going from like high school in the 80s, the rainbow represented that you were homosexual. And it was just something, and I know because I took a trip out to California and they had rainbow signs on which restaurants were homosexual friendly, this and that, so that to us to see, and like, I didn't understand it at all. My husband is, he's like a Hells Angels biker. He was like, what is a Brony and what does the rainbow stand for? And I'm like, it doesn't mean to you what you think it means, because he's thinking of it like from San Francisco in the 80s. And I think that's what is like the gender, what do you call it, the generation gap, where when we were coming up in the 80s, the rainbow meant something else. Where now Rainbow Dash is tolerance and acceptance and loyalty and, like, I think that's what happens, like, is like our macho husbands are not getting it. They just are like, and I explained to my husband, I said, I did all the research and I talked to my son, I'm like, telling you what it is, and I watched some of it with them, and I went online and I educated myself, and I'm like, awesome, that's you, that's what you are, that's what you do. And then my husband is like, so is it okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like, he still doesn't understand it. He's like, Mike, whatever you like, that's cool. I don't get it, but it's cool. So he accepts it, but I had to explain like the difference of it's not the 1980s rainbow. Like, it's a totally different rainbow. So I can understand, like you're saying, your macho man sees rainbow and thinks differently, because that's like, I know in the 80s that was before well, it was different though. Yeah. It was different than today, because now even being homosexuality is more accepted and coming out than it was in the 80s. So if you wanted to go to a place that you knew that you would be safe, they would usually have like a rainbow decal somewhere. Or how if you were wearing one of your MLP buttons, another Brony or Pegasus will know that you. Where if you had a rainbow keychain, then somebody else that maybe was a gay or lesbian would know that you were also, like, so it's the generation gap, I think, with the rainbow understanding. Right. So that's what, I'm totally cool with it, like, it makes him who he is, but I can understand the confusion in the rainbow.
The best way to get through stereotypes is education.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, let's go to the person holding the piece of paper.
I have a question. I have a son who has gone through 2 schools, out of choice left, but both times, and years later he told me that actually he had gotten confused because people found out that he was a Brony at first school, which I didn't even know. And the second time it came up again, and he got depressed, quiet. And by the way, I have an extremely open relationship with my son. We talk about sex, we talk about everything. But somehow this Brony thing, because his cousin when he brought it up to his parents, they freaked out because they thought it was the homosexuality thing. And he was so scared because of how they reacted that it took him forever. In fact, we brought the cousin here. So my question is two-part. One, he's going into high school, so it's a whole new beginning. Is there any advice from other kids who have started in this school on great ways to like sort of feel people out? You know what I mean? Like any advice I could give him? And the other part is how can I get, because of the reaction from the cousin, he's been very I've been like, come on, let's watch a movie or whatever, and he's not quite comfortable. I've had so many other people at this convention say, wow, your mom is so cool, to my son and the other, but still he's at that teenage age where we're getting a little bit of that part too.
I understand.
Yes.
To answer part one of your question, what I always did, I would always drop references to see maybe who would get it. If they did, great. I'd talk to them after, maybe we become friends. And I just kept it down low for a little while. And then after a while, after I was a little more confident with myself, I would just kind of come out with it like with pins or a shirt. And until it got to the point where I was just telling everybody, yeah, I watched this show, it's cool. Maybe you should check it out, you might like it.
Yeah, there are little ways that that bronies find to kind of find each other in the crowd. You know, they'll say a catchphrase from the show, right?
Yep.
They'll do yeah, exactly. They'll say that. They'll say that among their friends, and if somebody catches it, they'll usually be like, oh, you watch this too. Or again, like Dylan was saying, where you'll have like something, you'll wear something small at first, to kind of, so that was kind of a symbol. It actually kind of harkens back to what the lady before you was saying about how back in the day, the rainbow was a way for people that were gay to know what places were safe. Well, it's like with My Little Pony, people that are nervous about telling their friends because they don't know how they're going to be accepted, having like a little lapel pin or a little something that would be very insignificant to anybody else. But a brony would seem to be like, hey, that's one of us. I would also recommend, like we were saying, there's safe communities like MLP forums that list like meetup groups that are good places to meet other bronies, and conversation starts up. Oh yeah, I go to this school too, and then you've got that group then, and we're everywhere and growing. This convention right now is at over 7,000 something people. So. Really? Yeah. Shoot, I work here and I didn't even know that. Here, you can have my job here. But yeah, so I hope that helps answer that question. Yes.
I just have a quick statement. My son, who's 16 and a brony, has a friend who has recently come out as gay to his parents. His parents are fine and tolerant, accepting. He's afraid to tell them he's a brony.
Actually, I would like to mention something about that. When I first joined the MLP forums, I'm very much a natural researcher, and I noticed that people telling their friends and telling their parents they're brony was a lot like people who are in the LGBT community telling their friends and family that they were gay. It's like being a brony was like coming out of the closet. And at first I was like, I didn't get it. I was like, what's so hard about it? I was like, okay, you're a brony, you watch a TV show. I didn't understand, until I dug a little bit deeper and I found that people were getting beat up over this. And people, parents were, freaking out. And, there was actually a friend of mine that he makes music. And his parents were both military. And he was forbidden to make NLP-based music when they found out. And until he finally like talked to me, and it's so silly, but yet, you know, again, it was just like, well, not in my house, because they automatically associate it with, you know, the whole, you know, you like this, so therefore you're this. So yeah, I totally get that. Let's do right here. Muffins.
Just a quick comment is that there's kind of a generation gap, where a lot of older people might think, oh yeah, there's the homosexuality Brony correlation, and then for some people you might have to think, oh no, I'm not gay, I'm really not gay. But for younger people, a lot of the time, it's a matter of you think there shouldn't really be a problem with that, because you would think that, okay, I don't care if you think I'm gay, whatever, I'm a Brony and whatever. But a lot of the time, people seem to think that they should have a problem with people thinking that they're gay if they're a Brony.
That comes a lot from gaming and the internet, where gay or fag or faggot is always used as a negative connotation. It really shouldn't. Not an insult.
Hi.
Hello.
So I came with my 13-year-old son and his 13-year-old friend and the mom. The two of us, very accepting. We have no problem with the Bronies. He went last year. I think it's great. We're very skeptical about what we were walking into here at BronyCon. Didn't know what to expect. But I got to tell you, by this point in the day, when we came this morning, the greatest people we've ever met, the friendliest people we've ever met, and just the core ethics of being a Brony are so fantastic that I can't wait to tell people, don't be embarrassed, don't be shy about it. I think it's fantastic. And anyone who doesn't accept you for 100% who you are, then maybe they shouldn't be in your life, regardless of how long it has been. You should just be accepted 100% for who you are.
I just want to say that this community is so great, we can break out into song anywhere. In an elevator on the way down to the building.
Yeah, it was funny. We had a cosplay photo shoot that randomly broke out to a dance party. We actually had to vacate. The staff had to vacate the photo shoot and just let it become the dance party that it had turned into. And it's been going ever since. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right. I'm really glad you're having a good time though. Let's talk to this gentleman over here. We haven't heard from many guys.
I am kind of like that guy that you're talking about who has that barrier up. You know, I wasn't sure what this was all about, but I will move heaven and earth to maintain a positive relationship with my son. So, thinking that I had an idea of what it was about, but what I really felt like it was all about, what I really got, what really taught me what it was about, was Thursday night standing in line, waiting for pre-registration for 3 hours. It was the most fun I've ever had in my life standing in line.
I love hearing people being slowly converted. We're spreading. Really, our numbers this year, you know, we set out, when we were doing the con this year, we set out with a budget of 4,500 attendees. That's what we thought was a comfortable and safe number to expect, only 500 more than last year. And then we exploded to what it is right now, 9,000, 8,000, 9,000, yeah, whatever it is, yeah, basically like twice the number. And that just shows you, though, I mean, that's a tremendous growth in the period of just 1 year, of all these people that are either one, fans, or are two, willing to at least come here with an open mind and at least see what we're about. So that's tremendous. Let's do it back here in the back with the ears and right here.
First of all, I just want to I applaud the generation that was born in the 90s. You guys are the generation of acceptance.
I'm a 90s kid, yeah.
I'm not saying anything about my generation or the generation before, but we're learning a lot from you guys.
You're welcome.
And maybe not on some things, you don't know everything, but as far as being accepting of everybody, it's awesome, you know, what you guys stand up for. I know being a mother of a 15-year-old, it's Brony, to any parents that are scared for their child, build up their self-confidence. That's what you do for them. Don't let them down as a parent. Just go, you know what, you're my kid and you're the best that you can be in my life, and they can walk to school every day or into another community and have their head held high. And then those people that can't accept are going to most likely leave them alone. They always pick on the weak. You need to teach them to be strong.
People like Dusty had, and there was a guy who won the cosplay contest with Sombra. I would mess with that dude. I mean, you know, these.
What you said about my ponies?
Yeah, you know, bronies are not just the small and the timid. They're also the very big, hairy, and scary.
Military.
Yeah, military. We have military bronies. And if there's ever a group that gets a lot of crap, it's the military bronies. Because you want to talk about a pool of stereotype. You know, I've got this guy, he's an E8. Those of you that don't know military ranking, that's just one rank lower than the highest an enlisted person can go. And, you know, he even still gets crap. But, I mean, by only a few.
But not for long, he's the 8.
Exactly. There was a deal where one of the drill sergeant is a brony, and he said they were all going to go to chow, and everybody had to call out a number when they were walking by, right? And this also goes to how you can, you know, sometimes find bronies in the crowd. As everybody was calling out a number, this one guy walked by, he didn't say it loud enough, so this guy gets in his face. And he says, louder. And he goes, you know, 7 drill sergeant. And he goes, louder. 7 drill sergeant. And then the drill sergeant, being a brony, just said he figured he'd do it one more time to match that episode. Well, then the guy looks over to his battle group and then looks over at the drill sergeant, and I swear to God looks at him and goes, and he looked at me, he goes, you are now my favorite private. Now drop down and give me 100. So again, that was just something that was just never expected.
We're not like favorite private. Is this drill sergeant named James?
Jacob.
Jacob Hughes, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that is an honest to God true story. I cannot believe the guy had the gumption to actually, you know, take his deep breath and go, yay. and then I forgot to mention at the end, he goes, too loud, drill sergeant?
I just want to say I came here because I have a difficult relationship with my mother since the last week. Because the friends I came here with, they're great, and we share a hotel room, and they're great guys. But the problem is, they're really expressive, and sometimes my mother is afraid of them. It's literally that, because she thinks they're a bad person, and that every brony is a bad person, and I should get out of there. Just keep on saying, I hope you had your face soon. I like, whatever, but it really hurts me, so I'm afraid she might start to like me less, and I really hate that. So do you think there's a way how I can approach her and make her feel less afraid of that? Make me feel more comfortable.
He said, Mom, how can you have a problem? I know you won't have a problem with this, Mom. I'm pretty sure he knew. But he said, how can you argue with something that teaches core good values?
That's what
I'm not watching something that kills people.
What I think is maybe show your mom some love and respect and hope that she loves and respects you back.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, it's one of those things you just have, you know, it's, again, people that just don't understand. I mean, but you got to approach it, try to approach it from that angle we were talking about earlier, and like the lady just said, is that, you know, how can you disagree with something that teaches core values versus, I mean, what would you rather have people watching, you know, learning, you know, stuff that's going to, you know, teach you to go, you know, kill people and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, really, I mean, seriously. I mean, I've always wondered why parents have this issue sometimes that they'd rather see their kids watching killing and slaughtering and graphics and nudity versus something that is teaching them like actual life lessons that are useful.
Yeah.
See right at the back with the pigtails.
But when I first heard that they liked My Little Pony, I was worried because they're boys and it's typically regarded as a girl show. And I never thought that it was homosexual in any kind of way. I just thought it was like girly on the screen. And I love the life lessons that the show teaches, and I'm fine with them learning that. But why, and how can I explain to my husband and other people and understand myself, why is the majority of the fan base men?
Why is it?
Because the internet is male dominated.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No females on the internet.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've heard there are no females that play Warcraft.
On the rules of internet.
Well, that is a lie. Actually, that would be something to look at the Dr. Edwards site, too, because he discusses that. I would like to believe myself, and then I'd like to definitely hear, you know, from Dylan and Lisa on this too. I would like to believe that in this day and age of openness that we're at, that males in general are looking for a way to express themselves differently. Because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, the old way, you know, I mean, nobody likes to, I mean, it's the same thing with women, you know, I mean, nobody likes to be categorized and put into a little box and say, well, this is the only thing you can do, this is the only way you can be.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, you know, I mean, with My Little Pony, it's not only is it, of course, entertaining and well written, which, of course, that attracts anybody, I don't care who you are. You know, if you see a movie that you like, you know, I mean, if you're an action lover and you're going to like the action movies, you like good writing and animation, this is a good show. I would like to think that this is something that allows, you know, guys to express that gentler side that is in everybody. It's just that, you know, guys are usually raised to bury that instead of, you know, knowing that it's okay to show emotion. You don't have to be a rock. So that's my take on it. So
I'm not sure why it seems like there's more men, but we isolate ourselves by identifying with a gender or a color or something like that. We're all just people. We have interests. Yes, purple and blue.
what do you think, Tom? From the only male person on this panel.
In this day and age, like Obsidian said, we should be able to be open about ourselves, be expressive of who we are. I mean, we should be able to say, I like this show and not have any problems with it. Like, it still amazes me that we have problems like Proposition 8, which just got finished recently. shouldn't have had to go that far. Anyway, yeah, we should be able to be open about who we are. That's the main thing. And I'm sorry, I can't really think right now.
People have been saying that for years. We should be allowed to be who we are. And we're moving forward slowly.
I just think like about 100 years ago, women didn't wear pants.
Couldn't vote.
Couldn't vote. Black rights.
I'm back. Sorry, always on duty. Gosh, let's do, way back there in the back. Yes, so yes, that person is pointing at themselves and what's happening now. You can stand up, please. All right, what's your question for our panelists?
Well, it's, boy, now it just all went out of my head. First, the reason that attracted me so much to come here is I have a daughter who is very much a tomboy, and a son who has always been a very nice, caring kid, boy, who has never been accepted because he hasn't been, you know, your rough and tough kind of kid. And my daughter is going to high school, and she's coming out of middle school. And it seems like, I'm from Ocean County, right by the beach, and it seems like there's this great big trend for these girls who are confused with their sexuality and are saying they are either gay or bisexual. I mean, it's huge, and so the rainbow is very much still representing that. And then my son, who's 12, just this summer became a Brony, and found out all about it, lots of great things, and there's common ground because, of course, the sisters go, "You're gay, you're gay," and you know, he's 12, he's really not sure about his sexuality yet. I mean, he's really not. So it's not a point yet. And the common ground that he found was the music, most of the fandom music, because it's so cool. And so it's not like this 6 or 7-year-old little girl thing. It's really cool current music. And I thought that was an interesting common piece. But the question that I have is, he's terrified about, he's going to 7th grade, about, he's so loving, he's terrified about going to school, because he wants to, you know, he wants to be who he is, but he's worried about what's happening because there's normal kids and he's secure with who he is. He said, you know, I might not be able to defend myself, but I can outsmart them, which is wonderful. But I just, there again, I think it's the same kind of thing of, I'm not sure how to help him, but at the same time, even with just my family, because it's the, you know, she's so adamant about, you know, he's gay. And half the time I think it's just she's riveted, you know, knows better. But, and I was just curious because you have, not that I'm saying that's your situation, but you were saying you're like superheroes and you're Brony, so I was just wondering how that worked out in your family.
Are you saying the differences in your kids? Do they fight?
Well, no, just how, like, within your dynamics, was it anything, because it's almost like, you know, it's almost like a flip-flop of roles. And did you experience any fallout with friends or at all? Because typically you go out and the boy's going to be in the superheroes, and the girl's going to be in the movies and the dresses and all that. And just did you experience that?
Actually, mine's family's almost exactly like that. Where my girl's the tomboy. She's the one who, now that she's been here, we found that she actually liked it, but she actually thought the same thing about the real manly boy thing, not a girl thing. But the thing that I always do, and my whole family's always gotten up to 30 nieces and nephews. One thing they always said is family first. You guys stick up for each other. I don't care whether you believe in what they're standing for, but 10, 20 years from now, all these so-called friends are going to be gone, and you guys got to stick up for each other. And you can joke and say, because you got to take care of me. Yeah, you can throw that joke in there. But it's always my whole family. That's the one thing that's always been adamant about this stuff. And you point out, say, well, you might not like whatever, but you like that. And say, you know, isn't it nice to know that there's someone else watching back? That is one thing that they're saying.
I have a question for our AV guy. Do we have a wireless microphone here? Oh God, we're declared war.
War on 4chan!
I guess that's not true. We've got a lot of people. Fun fact: we have bronies from all 7 continents here. Yes, including Antarctica. Our fandom, somebody sent a scientist down there, season 1 and season 2, and he became a brony. So, there you go. Again, it's very lonely in Antarctica. What I'm going to have you guys do from now on, just, I know it's kind of a pain, but since we're having such a little bit of a hard time hearing whatever's going on next door, if you want to come up and okay, so if you guys have, what you guys are going to come up here, if you have questions, and then just you can take the microphone and there we go. Can I have my AV guy? Okay, and these are going to be, we need to okay, because we are getting a little low on time, there we go. I call the AV guy up here and everything goes away. Okay. Alright, so anyways, we're gonna, the people that are in line are people that want to ask questions, and then we're going to go ahead and still allow, of course, comments from the audience, and that's the kind of format we'll go in. Okay, let's go ahead and start with you. What's your question?
Because of what we were talking about, well, pretty much this whole panel about like inventory access. Excuse me. Do you think that in a way that's actually made the Brony community not only stronger but more tight together, like brought them together more?
I think it has. Yeah, I think it has. Our struggles always bring people together. And the Brony community, obviously having many with outsiders, has been a tighter community. I mean, sorry. Even like next door in the Ponyverse, they were hugging and sharing Mountain Dew. So yeah, we're really tight.
There we go.
Hopefully.
Okay, cool. Alright, next.
Okay, this is my second con that I've been to last year, BronyCon, FireCon, BronyCon, and I have 2 sons, an 18-year-old and a 13-year-old who are bronies, and I also brought 2 other bronies with me, one from Germany, my son met him online, and my point basically, I know the question for you, is 2.5 years ago when I heard this very open, my husband was also in the military, he was skeptical, but to the parents who are questioning or having parents that are questioning or husbands that are questioning, take time. It takes time. The past 2.5 years, I've seen my son grow from this kind, caring, shy person who was picked on at school to now he graduated high school. He has come into his own, confident. He's doing art. He got scholarships for art. He won New Jersey Governor's Award for graphic design because he was able to use the fan art and just Brony's and the whole platform helped him find out who he was and grow. So now my husband's like, wow, this is amazing, but it took time. So invest the time with your kids, and that's my advice for that. But my question for you is, I have a son who's going to 8th grade who's having some of the same issues other kids are talking about. Being made fun of, being told, well, you must be the only Brony in the world, you know, things like this. He's like, no. So he's like, Mom, I'll just videotape it and bring it to school. I'm like, well, that's a good idea. Any words of advice? For the middle school, I find, being a parent now for 2.5 years of Bronies, middle school is the most difficult time. Once they get into high school, more confident, it does get better. So those parents out there, middle schoolers, that's the hardest time. So I don't know if you have any from, you know, you're going, are you in high school?
I'm going into.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really know what it's like to be a middle schooler and deal with all this because, I mean, obviously I was ending my freshman year in high school when I learned about it. And really the school I was at, while it's not the most accepting, there were a lot of Bronies there that I could find common ground with and get together with. Anyone that picked on me, I just kind of like, I let it go over me. I didn't care. I didn't let it bother me. And there was even a closet Brony who just made fun of me straight up in the middle of class, and just like to make sure no one thought he was a Brony. And I was like, really? But I didn't let it get to me. I just kind of stopped talking to him. That answers it.
No, it does, it does. And I'm also a teacher of middle school age, and I see a lot of boys being picked on, the nice, kind, gentle ones, who they're not jocks, they're not the most popular. They get lost, and I think this show is a way to bring it together, because a lot of them have kind souls and good hearts, and they just can't find their place. And when we walked into con last year, my son said, "These are my people." His face was just like,
these are my people.
Let me present you. So as a parent, I was just so happy that my son was happy.
Well, that's why it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, if you look at, there were 33 conventions this year, which, you know, I mean, those, you know, like, most of those, like, ended in fire or destruction or something. Or lost. Or LPU, you know. But it's because there's so many people that are trying to, they're trying to meet up, they're trying to seek out other people. And that's why you had so many different conventions, you know. So, but what was saying earlier about, you know, getting the art scholarship and all that, I've heard so many stories about people that have watched MLP that have given up on their artistic abilities, only to rediscover it because of the fandom, and then end up with like jobs in this, where this was like their first love, and then they just, you know, there's people that you know, have become these huge celebrities now. I mean, Eiley Monty. How many people know Eiley Monty? Woo! You know, Saber Spark. You know, so you know, people like that that have just really come into their own because of this fandom. So it's awesome.
Definitely one of the more creative things.
Yeah, our community is like, you know, it's like the +9, you know, in awesome points and creativity.
Shit, volume. 20% cooler.
That's right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment, but I'll try to be brief about it and lead into questions. Kind of want to say I relate to guy over here, and then my mom I found out through my brother who I'm staying with, thinks that all the bronies are here like me to go like be a pedophile or a deviant or something. But what I did with so it kind of hurt, but what I did with my dad, I showed him a Brony doc.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I found out, I was looking for Blu-rays on my home putting, and I found out, what's this documentary? I'm going to go get it, and then it brought me here, it's very touching. I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to show my dad this and tell him that I'm relating to the show. And he got a kick out of it, and we're all Trekkies, and he said, oh yeah, I know who Q is. And so I was going to show him and show my mom the documentary, and she thinks about it. So I thought maybe you could try that. If you get your mom come around.
Documentary is awesome. I think
yes,
we're all, even though John Delancey is not here, let's give it a nice round of applause.
And I was kind of wondering, I did happen to run into somebody from the documentary, and that was really surreal for me, and he said other people were here. I was wondering if you knew, because one of them was a boy that, like, he had to try to tell his parents, get them into it. So I was kind of wondering, what's going on with him, like if he's here or something.
I honestly don't know. I know that we did have several people that were in the documentary that returned. I don't know if he was one of them, but I know like Laser Pony. I know he was at the rave last night.
Did an amazing job.
They're having a panel later tonight.
They are?
Oh God, no, not more fire.
No fire. We've been fortunate. There's been no fires this year. But no, I honestly don't know if he's here or not. So, but thank you. Hello.
So now, I've been a Brony for a relatively short amount of time. I ascended on Christmas Eve last year. Ascended, yes.
I like your word choice.
So, what I was going to say is, for people who have heard about Bronies, not from Bronies themselves, but from biased news sources like Fox News, who I quote as saying, there are worse hobbies, such as terrorism. That's what they said. Cowards. Now, I just want to know, what do you think that your reaction to being a Brony would have been different if you had heard about one of those news sources in the worst possible way?
I definitely would have had some questions, because just hearing about biased opinions will give you a misconception about any subject we're talking about. But I tend not to watch the news because I think it's very biased.
Good for
It's
you.
written for sensationalism. I don't read tabloids. I make my own decisions.
I mean, it's sickening, the types of things that they'll say.
Yes, so I turn my ears off. Thank you.
All right, folks, we're almost out of time. We've got
14 minutes.
We've got about 14 minutes. Go ahead.
It said this was going to
He comes from small town Indiana, Brony Competition 1, town. And he stuck with it. I know he loves it. And he has to stick with it. As a matter of fact, his dad got it before I did, thank you. And he's ex-military. But I lost my outgoing son. He's in it. He stays in it. I miss my son. How is he going to do it?
I have something, unless you guys have something. There was a time that And I remember that I'm 33 years old. Can't believe I just actually probably said that. I mean, I'm 26. Yes. I remember when, like, for example, and I'm going to go somewhere with this, online dating started. I remember, people remember that, and it was like only the, freaks and the weirdos, are doing the online dating, right? And then as the internet exploded, that became like a more open thing. And then you got online communities, and those were, you gotta watch out those online communities because there's freaks and people, and they're not safe. This day and age, it's almost like I got a Twitter account because I started working for BronyCon. I hate Twitter, okay? But I had to have one because that's what everybody was using. It's just almost expected to do that. And what I would say is, even though it's not ideal, when you're in a place that the physical locale is not friendly to you, is to go online to like MLP forums. I say MLP forums because I know that's a good site. And to try to reach out and make those friends there. I know it's not ideal, but sometimes you're stuck just in a bad situation where you're having trouble finding other people that can understand. And I would, of course, sit down and just try to maybe, be a part of that. I know lots of parents that have actually joined up that community just to have a connection, again, just I would put maybe a little bit of an emphasis on that, this is okay. It's okay to have these friends that are, they're online, and, of course, you always want to be careful, even still. But, that some people, even myself, I have more friends online that I would consider friends than I actually do in, real life. And there was a time that was probably a really sad statement, but now it's, the world is getting smaller.
So maybe that's my generation gap. Because honestly, I think most kids do have a lot on my face.
Yeah,
I'm face-to-face,
Dylan could probably answer that more.
Is he outgoing online?
I don't, yes, I would say yes.
Maybe you just don't see him being outgoing because he's inside the house.
That could be, so.
You could always sit down and just ask him, what are your thoughts? That this is how I used to see you.
He's probably sitting back there going. He's a nice kid. They gave his mom the new sweatshirt.
So to the person who is hiding their face right now, I have a message for you. Communicate to your mother. Your mother is worried.
Communication is always the most important thing.
There you go. Look at that smile. So yeah, that may, just try to be a part of that.
I see him being outgoing here. I know these are his people.
Yeah, just stay connected. Always stay connected. Try to take an interest, and that is hard. My mom, doesn't even know how to really run a computer. My mom's like 60-something years old now. I know the actual age. I'm just really tired right now. I'm not that bad of that person. But 66, excuse me. But and she doesn't understand, well, why aren't you getting out more? Because she knows I stay at home a lot, and she knows I play a lot of online games and stuff. And, why don't you ever have any fun? I'm like, I'm 33 years old. Okay. So yeah, online could be a good thing in a way to show that, extroversion. So.